All right, great. So thanks everyone for joining. My name's Julia. I'm a scientific engagement manager at Protocols.io. So welcome to Tips and Tricks. This webinar covers some more of the advanced functionality that Protocols.io has. But if you're still new to Protocols.io, please stay on and listen, and I'll point you to some resources at the end where you can access some more kind of introductory information on how the platform works. So to start off with a little bit of housekeeping, I have started recording the webinar, which you've seen earlier. So all of the registrants will receive a link to the recording as well as these slides. So feel free to kind of just relax. No need to take detailed notes throughout the presentation. Closed captioning should also be enabled if you want to use them. And then at the end of the webinar, there will be a Q&A. So please add your questions into the Q&A or chat box during the webinar as they kind of occur to you. And then there will also be a webinar feedback survey at the end. So there'll be the opportunity to kind of give feedbacks and suggest topics for future webinars. And again, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we do have other webinars and one-on-one demos that you can join as well if you need more help getting started. So for the topics today, I'll give a very brief intro to Protocols.io. I'll talk about some of the functionality and nomenclature in terms of forking, versioning, and copying. Then I'll hop out of the slides into the platform, and it will be a live demo of some advanced editing, how to use the run feature, the task and reagent manager, and collections. So you may already be aware, but the mission of Protocols.io is to make it easy to share method details before, during, and after publication. And so to enable that, there are two sides of the platform. So on the one hand, we are an open access repository where you can publish and discover scientific methods. And then the other side of the platform is that it can be used as a private collaboration tool where you can privately and securely kind of create, share, and optimize your protocols before publication. But a lot more people know about the kind of public publishing side. And so this is an example of what that looks like. So if you aren't familiar with the concept of modular publishing, this is a nice kind of example which shows that, research outputs other than a research paper can be published in fit-for-purpose repositories and then linked to from the research paper. And then this is a really nice example of that. So this is a Nature Communications paper. And then in that paper, we can see that in the data availability section, they've said that, their expression constructs have been deposited onto AdGene, their methods have been deposited onto Protocols.io, and then their molecular structure is in the protein data bank. So all those different outputs are placed in the appropriate repositories. But if you've used Protocols.io before, you should be kind of generally familiar with how to kind of publish a protocol and link it to a research paper. Excuse me. So in terms of getting your protocols onto Protocols.io, this is a refresher to let you know all the different ways that you can do that if you aren't familiar already. So first of all, in any published or protocol that you have access to on the platform can be used as kind of a template. So you can find a protocol, you can create a copy or a fork, which will create your own private editable copy that you can then adapt as you see fit and edit for your purposes. You can then, of course, kind of draft a protocol from scratch in our protocol editor. And then you can kind of import from kind of existing text that's been drafted. And so this is kind of relatively new over the past year. We've created a new AI protocol importer, which I'll show briefly in a second, which means that if you already have a method drafted in a Word or PDF format, you can kind of import that, and the AI importer will convert that into the dynamic stepwise format in protocols.io. Lastly, we also have this protocol entry service. So this is a paid service where we have editors who will input that protocol for you. If you are part of an organization such as a university that has premium protocols.io, that is a complimentary service as part of premium. But if you are a free protocols.io user, the AI importer does work quite well if you wanted to get those protocols imported. And then just to kind of clarify some of the different terminology on protocols.io, some people have questions about what's the difference between creating a fork of a protocol, creating a new version of a protocol, and creating a copy. And so this table outlines some of the differences. You can also go to this link here that's part of our help center, and it's a little bit more information as well if you are interested. But essentially, so a fork, when you create a fork, anyone can create a fork, and anyone can publish a fork. And the fork will always be linked back to the original protocol that it was forked from. And when should you use the forking feature? If you find a protocol and then you want to edit and adapt it for a kind of different purpose. So that might be you're using a different piece of equipment, you're using a different sample type, a different species, a different strain. You're modifying that protocol for a different purpose. And this is what it looks like on the platform. So you can see that the link back to the original protocol is always maintained, so the original protocol developer can get credit for that. Then there is a new version. And so the new versions are always linked to the previous versions. Anyone can create new versions, but only the owner of the original protocol can actually publish a new version. So for example, if you find a published protocol in the platform, you can create your own kind of private version. But if you wanted that to be a new version to the original author's published protocol, you would need to kind of correspond with them and see if they wanted that to be a new version. Because we can see here on protocols.io, it's displayed a little bit differently because it's essentially supposed to be the same protocol, but an updated version to, for example, rectify an error in the step, or kind of provide extra information about the optimizations of a specific part of the process. So it's improving the existing protocol rather than adapting the protocol for a different purpose, like with the fork. Then there's also the copy, and what that is meant to kind of be used for is if you want to use the protocol in kind of metadata information, such as the authors, affiliations, things like that in multiple protocols. And so there's no kind of link to the original protocol that remains because you would be just repurposing, for example, like the authors and their affiliations, but not the actual content of the protocol. And so You can see kind of an example here. So this is a collection of protocols. So all of them have the same image and the same authors, but there's different contents. This one's background, hypothesis, study design. So they could create copies to easily create multiple protocols with the same metadata. All right, so now that we've covered some of that information, I'm going to hop out of the presentation and into protocols.io. So some of the assumed knowledge for this webinar is kind of being able to search for public protocols on the platform and kind of having a general understanding of how workspaces work on protocols.io, as well as importing and publishing protocols. But I will very briefly touch on importing and publishing as they're kind of key aspects of protocols.io. But the core content that we will cover is listed here. All right, so I'll stop sharing the slides now and then reshare on protocols.io. All right, so we are in my protocols.io workspace, and the first thing that I'll show is if anyone's not familiar with the AI protocol importer, I'll show you how to use it now. So what you can do is kind of drag and drop Word or PDF files directly into your workspace. And then if you go onto the right here, you'll see that there's an option to create a protocol from this file. So you can click that button and a process will start to convert this PDF file into a protocol file. Alternatively, what you can do is go up to the new button here and click to import a protocol. You can drag and drop your file here. So it could be PDF, Word, images, things like that, and then start the conversion process. So I would encourage you to try that if you already kind of have a protocol drafted to just easily get that onto the platform so that you'll have something to play around with. And then we will jump straight into the protocol editor to go through some of the functionality there. So you should already be familiar with kind of inserting different sections and steps into a protocol, but we're going to cover some of the more advanced features like components. So you can see we can add in different components here on the right. So there's the options to decide what kind of research are you doing, and then tailor the list of components to that. So for example, you can see what all of them are, or if I know I'm a biologist, I just want to be looking at biology components, or if I don't do lab work, maybe I just want to look at the list of components that are computational. Also, if you do have components that you use really often, you can come in and add them to your favorites as well, and then you can do that to view your favorites. And so you can see in here, I've added in some kind of lab-based components. So I've put in, this is the amount component. I've put in a timer, temperature, and these become really useful when you're using the run functionality, which I'll show in a second. And then, so I've put in some computational components here as well. So linking out to specific software, specific data sets, or if I do have a command that I want to put in, I can do that as well. And so I've got a couple of examples of how the components have been used in practice. So this example here is a little bit more lab biology focused. So you can see they've put in the various components into their protocol. So things like temperature, timer, the RPM for centrifugation or spinning, And this is a really nice protocol where they've put all that information in. And then I've also got a nice computational example as well. So if you want to kind of go look at these protocols later, you feel free to do so. And then in this example, they've linked out to kind of various software packages where various things are available and commands that you could use. So this is some of the things that are possible to put into the protocols on protocols.io. Then I'll show how to add in things like attachments, images, and videos. So firstly, you can attach kind of relevant file types into the steps where you might be using them. So if you want to do that, you go up to the little paperclip, which most people I think know as the ability to add an attachment. So you can search if there's existing files that are in your protocols.io file manager. You could also kind of upload a file from your computer. I'll just upload this protocol here. And you can see that's easily in the step. I actually have I think, attachments example as well. Yeah, so this protocol here is they've made really nice use and added in the various kind of file types, so HTMLs, some zip files. I think this is an Excel file in the steps where you need to use them. So that's really nice if people are needing to download those, if they're kind of trying to reproduce the protocol. And then you can add in images. So you would go up to the top here to kind of insert image. You can add in your figure legend, whatever information you'd like, and you can also kind of resize that as well. I think this is quite a small image file, but whatever size you want that image in, there's also additional options here along the top. And so then you can add in you can add in videos as well to your protocol, which can be really nice if there's a specific kind of setup that would be really kind of useful to show in video format rather than writing a big paragraph trying to explain it. So you can add quite short videos. If you have, for example, a 10-second video, you could add that directly into the protocol using this kind of insert image video button. But if you did have a longer video, something like 30 minutes, I would recommend to use the embed media option as well. And so if you wanted to know kind of what the size limits for uploading videos are, you can go to our help center. So if you search for file attachments in the help center, you can see kind of what the limits are. But really, essentially, if you use the embed media option, there's kind of no limit because that's not stored on protocols.io. It's stored somewhere else. So in this instance, I want to embed a YouTube video. So I've already got that YouTube video open here. And so then what you would do is you go down to share and then click on embed. And then you would copy all of this. And then I add embed media. And the video has shown up and can be played in protocols.io. We also have the ability to add in tables. So those can be accessed along the top as well. So I will put in a little table here. So there's various options with the tables. You can come in and actually edit the names of these headings along the top if you want. So you can do that by right-clicking and then clicking rename this column. So just for the example purposes, I'll do column A. So that will rename the columns along the top. But I find it easier as well just to kind of put the title in here. So I might do sample, so kind of sample weight. And then I'll know that this is column A, B, and C, which can be kind of useful when you're putting in formulas into this table. So if I wanted sample, I could do volume. And then concentration. And let's say I want to do, I've got 5 milligrams of my sample, 10 mils of my liquid, and then I can put my formula in. So just like you would use in Excel formulas, the only caveat is that you actually need to write the cell reference rather than kind of clicking on a different cell. So I can do kind of A2 divided by B2. And then that will do that. And I can kind of drag that down. And then if I was following this protocol, um, you know, as I weigh out my samples and measure out the volumes, I can input them. And so I know exactly what the true concentrations are, for instance. And then you can also kind of insert rows and columns here on the right. And then we also have plate maps. So so I know some people, they will kind of plan out their well plate maps in Excel. So you could attach an Excel file. So I'll actually show what this file looks like. That looks like this well plate plan. So you can do that, but you can also use the well plate component. So that will be found here in the components list. And so you can choose to, for example, what size or a custom size, or you could also kind of import an Excel file directly. So I'm going to import that Excel file. And then if I have imported that, you can see that all of the kind of text that's associated with each of those wells has been imported as well. It does not import the colors, unfortunately, but that can be kind of easily added later. So you can edit each cell color individually, but you probably wouldn't want to do that if you have 96 wells to change. And so what I would recommend doing is going into this template settings. So we have various kind of like standard templates that you can kind of create and pick the colors. And then you can also create a custom template. So when you're creating a template, it's a lot easier. So you can kind of create the size that you want, and then you can kind of select multiple wells. So if you press Shift, and you can kind of select multiple wells, and then change them all to a single color, for example. But I already have a template kind of made that I'm going to apply to this well plate map. So I'm going to apply this one. And you can see that's already applied. So this is quite zoomed in. I can kind of zoom out to see the entire well plate, and I can also go to full screen if I want to see that. So we can see all the negative controls, positive controls, and then the kind of the data as well. And then I'll also show the smart component, which can be quite useful if you are forgetful, like I used to be in the lab with kind of recording down specific information. So that can be found here. So we're going to input smart component. And so what that is it kind of creates a key value table that can be filled out when someone's running through a protocol. So I will add in. So we can put this one will be number of cells. And if I mark that required, that means someone has to fill in the number of cells and information about the number of cells before kind of progressing to the next step in the protocol. And we can also do, for example, number of samples. I'll leave that one as not required. And so you can see that kind of information is there, and you'll see what that looks like when we go through the run. And if someone does fill that information out, and that you really want to capture that, you can download that information as a CSV as well. And so we also have what we call a step case. And so that would be used if you have a protocol, and maybe there's kind of part of the protocol is always the same, but then you might reach kind of a branch in the protocol where you might follow a certain set of instructions based on scenario A, or a certain set of instructions based on scenario B, or the instructions differ, for example, based on the sample type. So that's when you can use a step case. So you can add it in here by adding step case. I'm actually going to add it at the end because I find that an important thing to keep in mind with the step case is that once you kind of branch to the two step cases, you can't kind of condense it back into one set of instructions. So you'll see, I'll show what that looks like. So I'm going to create a new step case here. So for example, maybe it's a certain set of instructions for kidney cells. And then I'll add a new step case for liver cells. So yeah, you can add kind of extra information. I'm just going to put in the title. If I had a really long title, I could put in this short title, and that would appear. So this is the short title, and then this is where the longer title would show up. And we can see I can switch between them and then add different steps to each step case. So I'll add in a new step. So kidney cells. I can add in it kind of as many steps and sections kind of as I want, but that's only for the kidney cell step case. When I click on liver cells, you can see that step's not there anymore because it's going to be a different set of instructions. And they will always be two different set of instructions from kind of step 14 onwards. And then the last thing that I'll show is this kind of ability to nest protocols within a protocol. So this is my tips and tricks webinar protocol, but I have, using the protocol component, clicking here, so I could select a protocol, nested this protocol within it. And so I can come in, I can preview what that protocol looks like. So it's, steps on how to make a salt solution. But when I do run this protocol, this nested protocol will actually kind of expand. And so when I reach step 14, and you'll see what that looks like, it will include all those steps on making the salt solution as well. So I will go ahead and start running this protocol. So I'll go to view, kind of preview it. This is where I could also publish. So you can see the publishing kind of options along the top here. But I'm going to click on run. I'll save it in my workspace. Being a bit slow today. And so this is the protocol run. So we can see here that there's that protocol. And if I go all the way down, that's really weird. This should expand, maybe because I've put in this step case. I've never seen that happen before. I'll actually look into that. But what you'll normally see is maybe I'll maybe I'll delete that step case and try again. All right. Let's try it again. There we go. Yeah, the step case must have interfered with that. I'll let our team know that that happens. But you can see now that when we go to step 14, it's included all these kind of steps. So 14.1, 14.2 that are within this protocol that I've nested within it. But I can start off on step 1 and I can kind of mark those steps as completed. Maybe I skipped one or one failed as I'm actually completing that experiment in the lab. I can also go in, so for example, I've put in the timer component that will run like an actual timer. And I can come in and edit each of these steps. And if I do edit this step, it will only edit the run record itself. It will not edit the underlying protocol file. I can also add in a specific comment. If I want to add edits that way as well. And then we can see as well kind of what comments have been made on a specific step. But I'll go ahead and like run through these quite quickly so that we can get to this smart component. So you can see we've reached that now, and I can't actually go to the next step because I haven't entered in the number of cells, and that is required information. So I don't know, I'll just put in 20, which is not a realistic number, but as an example. And I could mark that as done now. And the reason I could mark that as done because even though number of samples is blank is because that's not actually marked as required. And then what's also really nice is if you have put that information in the form of components, you can come in and you can actually scale up the entire protocol. And so you can see that it's automatically calculated that, made a note that it's been scaled by 2. Sometimes it might not be appropriate to scale the entire protocol. And then in that instance, you can go in and edit, go to settings, and then you can scale up a specific step. So once you've come in, you completed your run record, all that information will be captured. So who has done a specific action and when it's been completed. So you kind of have that kind of audit trail. And it's all editable until I click this finish run button. And once I click that, the run becomes an uneditable record of how the experiment was followed on a specific day. But before the run is finished, it remains editable. So for example, maybe I've completed half of this protocol and then I need to hand the protocol over to my colleague, or maybe I fell sick and they need to complete it the next day because I've asked them to. They can, if they're in the same workspace as me, come in, open up the run record file, which would be here. You can see it's an incomplete run record. They can then complete that run record and finish it as well. So you can work really collaboratively with these runs as well. You can also export the run because it is kind of, methodological information of how an experiment's done. So you could export that as a PDF, or you can export that to an electronic lab notebook if you have it. So I've linked to OSF, that's a lab notebook, but we do have links to several lab notebooks. I'll actually show you which ones we've got. So I will go to here, go there. So these are some of the ELNs that you can export directly to. So for example, Lab Archives, OSF, Lab Forward as well. There's various other apps that you can link to. Alrighty, so that was, I think, most of the information about the run record. What I'll move on to now is the task manager. So this, I think, is only available for premium workspaces. So just keep that in mind if you're on a free account, and it can be accessed. So if you want to check if you have access, you can go into your workspace, and then you would go down to tasks and click here. And it would take you to this task manager. And this gives the ability to kind of assign tasks to people in your workspace. So they can be regular tasks or they can be specific protocols. So we can see it in list view. We could also see it in a calendar view. Um, and I'll go ahead and create a task. So they complete these protocols. So you actually have to give it a title and save first. And so I could just assign a task like that to a specific person, but I'm going to assign specific protocols. So let's assign that tips and tricks protocol. Oh, being a bit slow today. There we go. I could assign a single protocol, or I could assign multiple protocols. So I've got another one in mind, so the shortcut and run. And then I can pick, so I could assign both of these protocols to one person, or I could assign this protocol. So I'm going to assign it to myself. And I could I'm going to assign myself this entire protocol. And I could pick a specific date range if I wanted to as well. And then with this one, I'm actually going to split the protocol across two people. So for me, I'm only going to do steps 1 to 2. And then I'll actually save that. I think my internet's especially slow today. And then I will assign my alter ego. That's my last name backwards, and to the rest of the protocol. So 3 to 2. Oh, I think I've done I've selected the wrong one. I'll select this one. So I'll do then 3 to 15 for Leanne. So it's a really nice way to kind of, you know, assign specific parts of protocols to different team members, or maybe you might assign one protocol to two people, and it might be, an understanding that, for example, the PhD student will actually be doing the protocol, but maybe a senior postdoc is assigned it as well, and they're just kind of there in a supervisory capacity. So you can kind of tailor it to how you want. So I'll just say that we'll start it on today. I think it will take 2 days. And so it will be due 2 days from now. So it says changes have been saved. So I can go back and see that in my list, it's here. And if I go to my calendar, it's across these days. And I'll know that I've assigned that task to my team. And maybe I shouldn't assign them something else on these days because they'll already be busy with this protocol here. So that's the task manager. And then I will also show the reagent manager as well. So I'm showing that here, and that can also be accessed. So I'll exit that out. So that can be accessed here, manage reagents within a workspace. And so what will show up is all of the reagents that have been added individually to as components within the protocols of that workspace. Or I can come into here in the reagent manager and add them in manually. So we can see some are already listed. I can search for reagents. So if I search, actually, this is just searching in my workspace right now. So we can see it's on the workspace level, but I'll go here. And so now I can search kind of all the reagents on protocols.io. And so we can see we've pulled in actually lots of vendor catalogs. And so you can try and select the exact reagent that you're using, the exact right catalog number, because that can kind of, as we know, affect if a protocol works or not. Some reagents from vendors work and others don't. If we don't have it in that list, you can go ahead and create your own new reagents. You'll have to fill in this information. And you can also bulk upload a list of reagents from your kind of inventory system if you wanted to. So you could click upload reagents. That would need to be in a CSV file with the relevant information. So you can see there are some instructions on how to set that CSV file up. Okay. And then so if I go back to my reagents, I can kind of come in and edit them and say, for example, what might be the expiration date, where is it located, how much is available. And then what you can also do is, so I would access this information by going to Edit Reagent Workspace Details. But if I go to Open Reagent Page, I'll be able to see all of the protocols on protocols.io that actually use that specific reagent. And so I can see that there's many of them here. So that might be a way to kind of, if you're maybe having trouble with a specific reagent, see what other people use it and how they used it, kind of get inspiration that way. And so last but not least is talking about collections on protocols.io. So when you publish an individual protocol on protocols.io, I'll go ahead and open this one. Each protocol receives a DOI. However, you might have lots of protocols that are relevant for a research paper, and we understand that it isn't really practical to kind of put 10 DOIs in a research paper to say, these are all the protocols that I followed. So if you are in that situation, you can use the collection. And I can see that these are already in collections. And so this is an example here. So these are all the protocols that are associated with this publication here. They've put them all into a collection, and then that collection receives a single DOI that can be cited in the manuscript instead of these individual DOIs. So if you do want to create a collection, let's go back to my workspace. So what you can do is select the protocols that you want to be in a collection. So I can press Shift and then select multiple, and then go up to this new collection button at the top where I want to save that collection. I'll just save it in my workspace folder. And we can see that they've been added into my collection. Um, if I also wanted to kind of add protocols that were publicly published on protocols.io into my collection, I could do that as well. So I could search for, I don't know. Yeah. And we can see these are published protocols on the platform that I could add to my collection as well. Or I could search my own files that way. So these are now all the files that I have access to, and would be private files. So that is, I think, comes to a close of what we're going to cover on the platform. I'll now hop back into the slides to finish up, and then we'll be in the Q&A part shortly. Okay. All right, so it's hard to cover all of the things that Protocols to IO can do in one webinar. I know we covered a lot of information today, but if you do want to learn more, we have a lot of resources that can be accessed. So first of all, I encourage you to kind of visit our help center, which can be reached at this link. We also have short 1 to 2 minute tutorials on how to do different things on protocols today. For example, we have a tutorial on how to import a protocol using the AI importer. So I'd encourage you to check these resources out if you want kind of like self-service help. You can also submit feedback or ask a question that will reach our team by clicking this button that can be visible in the file manager. And then we do have regular webinars. So you're signed up to this. We run these webinars 3 times a month across multiple time zones. So you can sign up for so the other topics would be kind of an intro or getting credit. And then you can also access past webinars via this link. They're put on YouTube, so you can always go back and kind of review them if you want. And as I mentioned at the start, if you do want more tailored, personalized help, you can request a one-on-one demo. And if you do that, so it would be a Zoom meeting with, if you're in Europe, probably me or my colleague Emma, and we would talk to you one-on-one, show you how to do what you are interested in, and you'd have the opportunity to kind of ask a lot of questions. If you are interested in a tailored webinar for kind of your university or a specific research group, we might be able to arrange that as well if you have kind of enough people that are interested. So you can email us to ask about that as well. And so I'll go ahead and finish up. I think we're like perfectly on time. We have about 10 minutes left for Q&A. So please go ahead and put your questions into the chat. And then we also have the webinar feedback survey that you'll see there on the right. So you can either scan the QR code or I'll put this link that's underneath it into the Zoom chat. So you can easily follow that as well. So yeah, if you could try fill out that survey to give us feedback. We really appreciate it. It helps us make these webinars more informative to you while we're kind of waiting for people to put their questions into the chat. All right. I'll put that link in shortly. All right, you should see the link to the feedback survey in the chat. And then let's see. So we don't have any questions that have come through yet. If people don't have questions, that's okay too. We can wrap up early. If people are more comfortable kind of asking questions when the recording's finished, I can go ahead and turn that off now as well.